insurance sector in the first quarter this year. Now, opening
各位
remarks
媒体
from
朋友
Mr. Huang
上午
Hong.
好。
Friends from the media,
首
good
先
morning.
我通报银行保险机构疫情防控情况。
Now, let
截止
me brief
昨日
you on our efforts in
全国银行
COVID-19
保险机构
response.
累计确诊1065人，其中
In our sector,
933人，
1,065
1016
cases have been
人，
confirmed.
其中湖北887人，累计死亡42人，其中湖北41人。 还有一
933
些
have been
银
cured,
行保险机构的
and in
员工
Hubei,
家属受到感染，不
887.
幸去世。对于他们的
In
不幸去
Hubei,
世，
we
我
have
们深感悲痛。
42
我
fatal
们将以
cases.
更
We're
加努力的
deeply
工作，
saddened
为人
by
民群
their
众更好
passing.
的服务来纪
We
念他们。
will
目
work
前，
even harder
全国银行保
in
险机构
memory of
还有
our
7名患者在
colleagues.
医院继续治疗，无症状感染者
Now,
共8人，其中湖
there
北
are
6
7
人，已治愈。
patients under
截止
treatment.
目前，除湖北外，
Apart from
全国银行
Hubei,
保险机构
in our
复工率
sector,
约97%，
about
银行保险
97% of the staff
网点
have
复
been
工
back
率
to
达
their
到
work.
99%。
In branch
湖北
offices,
辖内已有
99%
6000多的银行保
of
险机
staff
构，
have returned to
90%
work.
的银行保险网点复
And
工。
in
武
Hubei,
汉辖内
90%
银行
of the
保险
branch
机构
offices are open.
员工到岗率
In、Wuhan
网点复工率稳步提升，
The
基
rate
本金
of
融服务
staff returning
得
to
到
work
有效
is
保障。
steadily rising. The basic
当前
services are
在以习近平同志为
guaranteed.
核心的党中央
Now,
坚强
under
领
the
导
strong
下，
leadership of the CPC
我国
Central
疫情
Committee
防
with
控
Comrade Xi
向
Jinping
好
at
态
its
势
core,
进
the
一步
good
恢复，
progress in COVID-19
经济社
response
会运
is
行
further
逐
enhanced.
步趋
The
于正常。
economy and life are coming back to
银保监
normal.
会坚决贯彻落实党中
CBIRC
央、
has
国务
been
院决策
following
部
the
署，
plans of the
按照
Party
6
Central
稳
Committee and
和
State
6保的要
Council
求，陆续出台多项政策
in
措
accordance
施，
with the
推
requirements of
动银行
stability
保
in
险机
6
构
major
加
areas
大对
and
疫情防
safeguards.
控
We have
和
rolled
经
out
济社会发展的
multiple
金融支持，
policy measures to step
助
up
力
support
复工复产、
from
扶
the
商
banking
扶
and
市，
insurance
着
sector
力防范
to
化解金融
economic
风
and
险。
social development.
银行业、
We have
保险业
also worked
保
hard
持
to
了
forestall
稳
and
定
diffuse
运行。
financial risks. On the
一是
whole,
全力
the
做好
sector
疫情
is
防
in
控
steady
金融
performance.
服务。
First, we
银
have
行
made
机
all
构
out efforts
有效
to
应用
offer
降准、
good financial
再贷
services
款、
for
再贴
COVID-19
现资
response.
金、
We have made
主
use
动
of the
对接
tools such as lowering
重要
required reserve ratio,
医疗物资
re-lending,
和
and
生产物资
discount.
生产运输
We
企
have
业，
reached out to the
提供利率优惠
production
和
and
专项
transportation
贷款额
companies of
度。
major
保
medical
险机构
supplies
为
and
受疫情影响的
goods.
出险理赔客户
The
设置
concessional,
快
there's
速服务通
concessional
道，
interest rate
适
and
当
special
扩
credit
展保
quota.
险赔付责任范围，
There's
努
a
力
fast
实
track
现
for
应
hard-hit
保尽保、
clients in
应赔
settling
尽赔。
claims and
二
extended
是及时
coverage
为企业
to make
提供
sure
流
the
动性
insurance
支持，
coverage and
着力
claim
帮助中
settlements
小
are as
企业渡
extensive
过
as
难关，
possible. Second, we
加
have
大小微
provided
企业信贷
liquidity
支持。
support for
一季
companies
度
to help
末，
small and medium-sized
普惠
enterprises
型
to
小
tide
微
over
企
the
业贷款
difficulties.
同
By the
比
end
增
of
长
this
25.93%。
the first quarter,
5家大型银
inclusive
行
loans to medium
新
and
发
small
放普惠型小微
businesses
贷款利
went
率
up by
4.3%，
25.93%.
在
The
2019年基
such
础上
loans issued
进一
by
步下
top
降了
5 banks
0.3个百
is
分点，着力增
4.3%,
加信用贷款。
0.3
一季
percentage
度
points
对企
than
业、商户
the
和个人经营者发放的
level
信
in
用贷款
2019.
增加
We
了
have also
2.5
increased
万亿元，
credit-backed loans.
增量接近
An
去年
additional
同期的
of
2倍。
2.5 trillion
优
yuan
化
of
续贷
such
安
loans have
排，
been issued to
扩大
households
续
and
贷规
individual
模，
businesses. The
缓解
increment
企业
is
资金
almost
周转
twice
压力。
of
一季
the
度
level
共
last
办理
year
续
in the
贷
same period. In the first
5768亿元，
quarter,
其中近
576.8
90% 资
billion
金投向中小微企业
loans was
和个
rolled
体工
over.
商户。
Among them,
对企业贷
90%
款
went
实
to
施
medium, small,
延
and
期返
micro
本付息政策。
companies and
目
household
前
businesses. The companies are allowed to defer loan payment in both principal and interest. Now, 870 billion of such loans have been arranged. There are also flexible arrangements for repayment of housing mortgage and consumption loans, which has helped to ease the pressure for companies and households. Third, we have worked hard to ensure to maintain stability of industrial and supply chains. We have developed supply chain-oriented financial services and reached out to the core companies along the industrial chain. They are encouraged to raise funds pledged on accounts receivable, orders, and warehouse receipts. In an effort to ensure smooth flow of capital along the industrial chain, by the end of first quarter, 218,000 companies have enjoyed day-to-day capital turnover support. The balance was 21.4 trillion. 297,000 companies at the upper end of the industrial chain received financial support with a balance of 5.8 trillion yuan. Fourth, we have supported the real economy to expand domestic demand. In Q1, RMB loan had an increment of 7.1 trillion yuan, up by 1.3 trillion yuan year-on-year. Most of the loans went to manufacturing, wholesale and retail, and infrastructure, with increments of 1.1 trillion yuan, 0.9 trillion, and 1.5 trillion yuan. Such support have been given to high-tech manufacturing, the upgrading of traditional industries, residents and public spending, and infrastructure investment. We also support bonds and equity financing and offered diverse financing services to companies. In Q1, the banks and insurance organizations made an additional of 2 trillion bonds investment. Among that, credit-backed bonds stood at 360 billion yuan. Fifth, we have fully leveraged the role of insurance. The coverage of insurance was expanded, and the speed and efficiency of settling claims has been raised. In Q1, insurance claims stood at 301.9 billion yuan. We have worked hard to develop health insurance and other kinds of insurance. Health insurance revenue went up by 21.5%. We fully leveraged credit and guarantee insurance to share the risk of credit loss. In Q1, the claims of such insurance totaled 16.1 billion yuan, up by 50% against the same period of last year. The COVID-19 presents unprecedented challenge for China's economic and social development. As a result, overdue loans and defaults have gone up, and non-performing loans has also increased somewhat. But the banking sector is still quite resilient, and the various regulatory indicators are pretty high. Going forward, we'll continue to work towards ensuring stability in the 6 key areas and work hard to serve the real economy. We will ensure there are no major risks and serve domestic development. We will work hard towards the building of a moderately prosperous society. Thank you. Thank you. Now the floor is open. Please tell us your media affiliation when asking a question. Thank you. With CCTV. Since the outbreak started, the CBIRC has rolled out a lot of measures to support resumption of production, but some companies complain that they have not benefited from such policies. Can you tell us the delivery of such policies? Are there any plans to speed up the enforcement of the policies on the ground? Thank you. Since the outbreak started, The CBIRC has followed the work arrangements of the Party Central Committee and the State Council. We have rolled out a string of supportive measures, standalone or in coordination with other departments. First, we have improved financial services for COVID-19 response. We have asked financial institutions to meet the needs of public health infrastructure, science and research in their financing needs. We also encourage them to lower interest rates for loans, loan renew, and increase credit-backed loans to support the companies to tide over the difficulties. The banks have provided over 2.5 trillion yuan of credit support to companies. Second, the small and medium-sized companies can defer their principal interest payment for loans. For the small and medium-sized companies that have difficulties, since January the 25th of this year, they are allowed to provisionally defer their principal and interest payment without any penalty interest payment. Their risk category would not be downgraded and their credit record is not compromised. By the end of March, 880 billion of such loans have been deferred. Third, we have supported industrial chain. We encourage banks to meet the needs of the companies along the industrial chain. The companies are encouraged to raise funds pledged on warehouse receipts and inventories. When the core companies receive financing, they're encouraged to pay in cash to companies in the upper and lower stream of the industrial chain to ease their pressure. Fourth, we have encouraged and improved inclusive financial services for small and micro companies. Through a whole host of policies, we have encouraged and urged banks to step up credit support to small and micro companies. By the end of March, 12.55 trillion yuan of lending have been granted to small and micro companies. That's much higher than the same period of previous years. On the whole, the policies have paid off. In their implementation, there are also some deficiencies. First, some companies are indeed not qualified to benefit from the preferential policies. And some companies, because their guarantors are reluctant to guarantee, cannot benefit from such policies. And for some others, they do not know of such policies. And some banks and insurance companies, on their part, have not fully delivered the policies down to every detail. So like you said, indeed, there are some companies that have not benefited from these policies. We take these problems very seriously and we're working on them one by one. So here, I would also hope friends from the media can do more reporting and better inform the companies of the financial supportive policies. Going forward, we'll continue work hard to ensure the delivery of policies on the ground through guidance, assessment, and review. We will urge the banks and insurance companies to make good use of supportive policies, have better communication with the companies to ensure the policies are not compromised, so that they can truly benefit the companies. Thank you. From China News Service. The corporate governance of small and medium-sized banks is one of the priorities. How about the dealing of non-compliant shareholders?
Thank you for your question. We will have Mr. Cao Yu, Vice Chairman, to answer the question. Thank you for your attention on small and medium-sized banking institutions. The Party Central Committee and State Council attaches great importance on their governance. At the 2017 National Financial Work Conference, President Xi Jinping explicitly made the need to improve the legal framework governing the financial sector. On November 2019, the China Financial Regulatory Commission held its 9th meeting and discussed ways to deepen reform and fend off risks for small and medium-sized banking institutions. The meeting called for improved governance. After the meeting, CBIRC worked with relevant departments and carried out specific working plans with detailed requirements. Well, our current priority for these institutions is to bring the governance of banking institutions on par with party's leadership. The performance evaluation and accountability of institutions' 3 boards and 1 management in their rules of procedure must be improved. The shareholders' structure must be enhanced, their qualifications be further checked, and their behavior be regulated. A number of policy documents have been rolled out, such as measures for the administration of equities and measures for corporate governance, supervision, and evaluation. All these have served as institutional underpins for us to take forward governance. So far, we've made progress. First is we've enhanced the overhaul of irregularities for non-compliant shareholders. Last year, the CBIRC launched a campaign looking into non-compliant shareholders and their affiliated transactions. Over 3,000 violations and 1,400 cases involving natural and legal persons entrusted shareholders were dealt with. Starting from 2018, we've screened medium and small-sized banking institutions in rural areas. We've now ordered non-compliant shareholders to transfer 3.34 billion equities and has fined 74 institutions in total of 51.65 million yuan. Second, sound arrangements were made for equities from non-compliant shareholders in high-risk institutions. We've put the overhaul of non-compliant shareholders' equities as a priority. So far, the restructuring of equities have been carried out. As of other institutions that have drawn social attention, the restructuring plan of their equities have been rolled out, and shareholders in question have been dealt with. Despite this progress, we still face an arduous task to strengthen governance of these banking institutions. The CBIRC will continue to act in accordance with market principles and laws to step up the overhaul for these equities. And we will make greater efforts to advance centralized custody for equities. We will further tighten the check on shareholders' qualifications and make thorough regulation. Thank you.
New York Times, many commodity exporting nations are running into difficulties now with low prices for oil and other raw materials. How, if at all, will you handle impairment of loans by Chinese banks to developing countries? Thank you. And are you already seeing impairment? Thank you.
好，请把问题翻译一下。
纽约时报记者，我们看到，大宗商品的出口现在受到低油价和原材料价格的影响。那么受此影响，中国银行对于发展中国家的贷款会受什么样的影响？我们目前看到，中国的银行对发展中国家的贷款已经受一些低价格的影响。
好，谢谢这位记者提问。这个问题，请我们银保监会首席风险官肖元起先生来回答。
Thank you for your question. We will have Mr. Xiao Yuanqi, Chief Risk Officer, to take the question.
中国的银行在国内和国外都有一些
Both in China and overseas, Chinese banks have various business dealings. This includes commercial loans. Well, affected by negative interest rates and other factors, the market has seen some turbulence. This has inevitably caused difficulties to the banks in terms of their loans overseas. This is not an issue limited to Chinese banks, but also foreign banks as well. So, on the one hand, acting on market principles and law-based manner, Chinese banks will continue their operation in developing countries. But of course, these business dealings must be premised on market principles and law-based governance. And on the other hand, we must strengthen risk assessment. Sound risk assessments must be made both on their customers and their clients. These banks must also strictly abide by Chinese laws and regulations, as well as those laws and regulations in their resident country. Chinese banks must carry out operation in foreign countries in strict accordance with international laws and regulations. Next question.
谢谢，我是中央广播电视总台国广的记者。请
From
问疫情对我
CCTV
国
News.
产寿险目前有何影响？下一步
How
产寿险
will
在助力
the
经济发
virus
展中
affect
将发挥
China's
什么样的作
property
用？
and life insurance, and
好，
what
谢谢
role
你
will
的
they
提
play
问。
in China's
这个问题
economy?
我来回答。
Thank you.
这个当前国际疫情呢，这个持续蔓延，世界经济下行压力加大。
Now the
国内复工复产
COVID-19
以及
is
经济社会发展面临新的困难和挑战。
world economy is
保
indeed
险业
facing
发展
downward
呢，
pressure. In
这个也不
China,
例外，
the economic
面
and
临
social
的不确
development
定、
is facing
不稳
difficulties
定
and
的因素显
challenges,
著
and
增
that's
加，业务
true
发展
for the
承
insurance
受
sector
巨大
as
的压力
well. They are
我认
under
为这个
enormous
影响
pressure.
呢，主要是
The
3个方面：一是保险业务增长
impact
承压，
can be
疫情导
summarized
致
as
生产
follows.
生活
First,
骤降
the，
经济下行压力加大，保险经营活动
COVID-19
受到了
has
制约，业务增长承压。
caused people's
这
life
个
and
2020年一
production
季度啊，这个保险业原
to
保
a
险
halt.
保费收入是1.67万亿，同比
In
仅
the
增长
first
了
quarter,
2.3%，
the revenue
增幅
of
同比下降
insurance
了
was
13.6个百分点。
1.67 trillion,
其
up
中
by only
财产险
2.3%.
这
But
个增幅啊，同比下降了7.7个百分
the
点。
property
人身
insurance
险
went
增
down
幅
by
同比下降了
7.7%.
15.23
Life
个
insurance
22个百分点。二是呢，
went
公司
down
经营波
by
动加大，部分企业和个人收入减少，
22%.
还款能力下降。
Second, the
违约率增
profitability
加
of companies have
比
been
如信用保
affected
证保
and they
险
have a
赔
hard
付率
time in
是
repaying
吧？一季度啊
the
呈大幅上升趋势。刚才
payment.
这个上升的比例，我
The
已经给
credit
各位
and
记者报告了，
guarantee
约
insurance
50%。意外险
claims
和
have
健
gone
康
up
险、农
significantly
险
by、
营业
50%.
中断险
The
和
insurance for
延迟取
accident,
消类
health,
保险等业务
agriculture,
赔付
and
增长较快。
suspension and
全
delay
球资本市场
and
波
canceling
动加剧，
have
保险投
seen
资
their
收益不稳定性增
claims
强。
gone up significantly.
第三
With
个
the
方面的影
turbulence
响
in
呢，就
the
是
global capital
经营成
markets,
本
the
有所上升。
investment is
疫情
also
期间，
seeing
保险公司
uncertain
各项费用
returns.
支出
Third,
将明显
during
上
the
升，成
epidemic,
本摊
the
销进一步增加。
revenue of expenditure of insurance
疫情中
companies
期
have
这个保险业带来了一
also
定
gone
挑
up.
战，也带来一些
On the
有
other
利的
hand,
因
there are
素。
also some
从宏观环境
opportunities.
来看，
If we look
各
at
项支
the
持复
macro
工复产，
environment,
扩大
the
内需和
policies
居
have
民
been
消
rolled
费，
out in
加
support
快
of
脱贫
resumption
攻
of
坚，
protection,
维
in
护金
expanding
融市场
domestic
稳
demand
定，
and
政策措施
consumption,
陆
in
速
speeding
出
up
台。
poverty reduction,
疫
and in
情对
stabilizing
经济社
financial
会发展的
markets.
负面影响
The
将
negative
逐
impact
步
of
减弱。
COVID-19 will
我国经济稳中
dwindle.
向好、长期向好的基本趋势没有
Fundamentals
改变。
sustaining sound growth of the Chinese
同
economy
时，社会
have
风
not
险意识、
changed.
群众保险
And
意识
people's
将得到
awareness
显
of
著提
risks
高，
and
对
insurance
保
have
险
also
功能
been
作用的认识
enhanced,
将
and
进
their
一步
role
加
of
深。
their understanding
保
of the
险
role of
保障需
insurance
求
is
将
also
持续增长，这是一个大趋
improved.
势。
So if we look
从
at
产业循环
things
来
in the
看，
long run, the
4月
demand for
中旬
insurance
全
will
国
go
规模
up
以上企业
steadily.
平均开工率达到99%。
In the mid of
国家重
April,
大工程
over
和基础设施建
99%
设稳
of
步
the
开展，
companies
公
above
共卫生、
designated size
应急物
have
资保障等产业
restarted.
加大投入。5G
Input
网络、
in
数据
major
中心
projects,
等新型
5G
基础设施
network,
建设
digital
加快推进。
digital centers
新型
have
消费形态培育
speed
壮
up
大，释
construction.
放出
New
新的
forms
保
of
险需求。
consumption and
保险
businesses
业
are
将
coming
获得
thick
更大
and
的发展
fast.
空间。
The insurance sector will
第三个
embrace
方面呢，
even
从
greater
行业自
space
身
for
来看，
development.
目
And
前
if we look
保
at the
险业
insurance
偿
sector
付能力
itself,
充足，
they are
流动性
the
稳定。
institutions are pretty
特
solvent.
别在这里我
They
要
have
强
a
调，就是我
stable
们今年
liquidity.
保险业虽然业务
This
这个
year,
发展的
the business
这个
of
速度比
insurance
去年同期
institutions
是吧，有比较大的这个就是增速啊，有比较大的放缓。但是
have
我们现金流
moderated
状
in
况
their
与
growth
业务结构的调
compared with
整，
previous
现金流状
years.
况啊得到了明显的好转，
But their
是吧？我们的
liquidity
现
is
金
much
净
better,
现金流大幅度增加，是吧？这就是我刚才
actually
讲的
much
流动
higher
性非常
than
稳定，
previously.
具备较好的抗冲击能
They're
力。
quite resilient.
疫情推动了行业加快管理创新和科技创新，
With
转
the
变经营模式，
outbreak, they're also
提升管理效
spurred
率，
to improve
提升科
their
技化和线上化水平，
management and explore
行业竞
new
争
science
能
and
力将
technologies. Their
继续提升，
competitiveness will
更
further
好地
go
满
up
足经济社会
to
发展
better
的
meet
保险保障
the
需求。
insurance needs.
这个下一步呢，银保监会将引领和推动保
Going
险
forward,
业进一步发挥
CBIRC
作用，
will continue
助
to
力六
urge
保，
the insurance
一
companies
是加大保险供给，支持
to
企业复工复
ensure
产，
safeguards in
积
six
极对接
areas.
社会保
We
险
will
需求，
encourage
加
them
大
to
健康
reach
险，
out
特别
to
是
the
医疗险
companies
产品的供给
and
力度，推广
provide
海
more
南复工
health
复产企
insurance
业、
and other
疫
forms
情
of
防
medical
控综合保险
insurance.
等创
We
新产品，
will
促
popularize
进产业
such
链
innovative
协
products
同复
as
工复产。
the comprehensive
二是发
insurance
挥
for
保险保
outbreak
证保
control
险
in
融资
Hainan.
征信功能，
And
增
second,
强
we
对
will
小
fully
微企业的
leverage
信贷支
the
持力度，
insurance
疏解
credit
小微企业的资金
credit
压力，
insurance
进一步
to
降低
ease
小微企业
pressure
融资成本。
for small
三
and
是加大
micro
农业生
companies
产的保
and
障
lower
支
their
持，
financing costs.
推进
Third, we
农
will
业保险
give stronger
提标
support
扩面
to
增品，
the
完善
agricultural
三大
sector,
主粮大灾保
improve
险机
the
制，
disaster
和
insurance
深度政治性
mechanism
保
for
险制度，
main grains and
支持农业
pig
生产和
insurance
重要副食
mechanism
品稳
to
价保
ensure
供。
the price
四是支
stability
持
of
投资出
major
口，
staples.
积极
Fourth,
保障经济
we will
稳
support
定运行，围绕国家重大工
the
程等
export
加大风险保障，支
with
持传
insurance
统基础设
products.
施和
We will
新型
support
基础设
traditional
施建
and
设，
new
大力
types
发
of
展出口
infrastructure
信用保险，为出口企业
and
保价
develop
护航，
export
积极推
credit
动“一带一
insurance
路”保险，
to
为“一带一路”沿线国
ensure
家
the
和中资企业
export
海外机构
companies.
提供风险保障。
We will also provide
六是发
insurance
挥保险
for
资金应用形
the
式多样的优
companies
势，
and
加
projects
大重
along
点行业和领域
in
的投资力
countries
度，
along
为
the
经济
Belt
发展
and
提
Road.
供资金支
Fifth,
持。
we will provide
六是
diverse forms of
借助
insurance products to
代理
provide
人队伍、保险代理人队伍
financing
的发
support.
展，吸
And
纳
sixth,
劳动力，
we
提
will
供更多
provide
就业岗位。
more recruits.
谢谢大家。
We will get more
好，请
recruits
继续
for,
提问。
for the
特
salesperson
别
of
厉害的
insurance to boost employment. Thank you.
中央广播电视总台央广记者提问：受疫情影响呢，
From
我想知道
CNR,
银行二季度不良率是否会继续上升？
Will the
甚至是大
non-performing
幅
loan churn rate of banks in Q2 go up, how will the
好，谢谢你的这个
banks
提问。
cope with that?
Thank you for your question. We will have our Chief Risk Officer, Mr. Xiao Yuanqi, to take the question. Thank you for your question on the NPL ratio. I know many of you have paid a lot of attention on this. According to our data in Q1, we did see a rise in banks' NPL ratio. Now the overall ratio is 2.04%, which is 0.606 percentage points higher than the start of this year. Accommodation and catering industries, as well as small and micro businesses that were hard hit by the outbreak, have suffered a severe blow. For the second quarter and times to come, we are following very closely the NPL ratio. We think there may be some potential rise, but it will not be significant. Now, we are seeing many companies and businesses resuming production, and a number of measures have been rolled out to hedge against risks. And these measures are already producing results. So this is the overall situation. From the point of view of regulatory authorities, we've been doing a lot of assessments and monitoring. We've focused on pressure assessments. We've made industry-specific assessment on their pressure and also evaluated the overall risks. And we've also stepped up the handling of NPLs. For example, in the first quarter, we've stepped up the disposal of NPL loans to 450 billion yuan, up 810 billion, up 81 billion yuan from last year. We're also carrying out measures to reduce banks' NPLs and make loans more available to needed corporates. And we also urged banks to do everything they can to better support the reopening of businesses, in particular of small and medium-sized businesses. Because the reopening of small and micro businesses will help cushion the impact of the virus and help bring down the NPL ratio. Well, the current difficulties for these businesses are temporary, and many are caused by the ongoing outbreak. Prior to the outbreak, they had sound performance, but after the virus broke out, now they are facing temporary difficulties in their liquidity. So they may face difficulties in repaying their loans and debts. So apart from efforts from our regulatory authorities, banks also need to categorize different clients and corporates. For example, they need to see what companies are hardest hit by the outbreak, thus they may face more hardships. And also, we have ample provision and capital to deal with risks. For example, we have 6 trillion RMB in place as provision. So we are fully prepared. So despite a small rise in the NPL ratio, but we believe that risks are well under control due to all our preparations and measures, and we have every means to deal with these risks. Next question, please. Thank you. From Hong Kong. We know the accounting fraud from Luckin Coffee has attracted a lot of attention. So what are the bank loans involved? What are the risks? And will their D&O insurance claim work? We will have Vice Chairman Cao Yu to take the question. I know many of you are consumers here today.
市场经济是法治经济。
I believe market economy is first and foremost governed by law. Abidance by laws and regulation, integrity and honesty are the basic requirements stipulated by China's law on market entities. The accurate and truthful disclosure of finances in full is the legal obligation for all businesses. The CBIRC believes that the fraud of Luckin Coffee is pernicious and is a harsh lesson. We will firmly support and work with relevant authorities to deal with this fraud in strict accordance with law. We stand firmly by the zero tolerance against financial fraud in an effort to protect a conducive market environment. From our assessments about what Luckin Coffee has borrowed from certain banks, the amount is not big. The outstanding amount of loans are relatively small. We've urged banks involved to step up risk assessment and post-credit management. On the issue of D&O insurance, prior to the company's listing, they've bought the D&O insurance. It is co-insured by several companies with a total amount of $25 million, and there are dozens of insurers from both China and foreign companies, and some have been reinsured to other insurers. From what we know, insurers have received claims from Luckin Coffee. This is a complicated case, and the relevant investigation is underway. So there are uncertainties about how these claims may work. We will urge these insurers to act in strict accordance with their contracts and deal with the fraud in strict accordance with market principles and law. Next question, please. From Phoenix News. We've seen some turbulence in the property market in Shenzhen. We've seen some irregularities on the market. So what's the government's comments on this? Thank you for your question. We will have Chief Risk Officer Mr. Xiao Yuanqi to take the question. I know this has attracted many of your attention. In Shenzhen, we did see some turbulence on the property market. Our division in Shenzhen and the People's Bank in Shenzhen have also rolled out regulatory measures. Overall, we believe that loans must be issued on their purposes and how they will be used. Be it mortgages or loans for property market, they must be appropriately used, and information must be disclosed truthfully. Such mortgage and loans must be used strictly according to their initial purposes. We should not let extra loans and debt that are not for mortgages to be channeled into the property market. Next question. My question is on COVID-19. How will it affect the repayment capabilities of small and micro businesses? And will there be any restructuring measures? Thank you.
I'll have Vice Chairman Cao Yu to answer this question. Thank you.
我们国家中小银行大概有4000多家法人机构，
There are
总资产
over
大概在77万亿元左右。
4,000 small and medium banks with a total asset of 77 trillion yuan. They are a mainstay in serving these small and medium-sized companies and supporting the agricultural sector. Their performance and their clients are quite special, especially in the time of the virus. Their challenges are quite substantial. The CBIRC is working hard to deepen the reform of small and medium banks to diffuse their risks. Together with other agencies, we have developed some work plans. They are still in progress. The reform and reorganization of small and medium banks will be quite considerable, especially market-based reform and reorganization. There have been some favorable conditions for the establishment for the performance of small and medium banks, such as relending and rediscount. There will also be differentiated regulatory policies vis-à-vis the small and medium banks that will be conducive to their reform and reorganization. I'm confident that with our concerted efforts, they will be healthier going forward, especially in serving the agriculture sector and the small and medium-sized companies. They will play a better role towards that end. I call on people from all walks of life to pay attention and care for their sound development and foster a good environment toward that goal. Thank you. With Hong Kong Economic Daily. For small companies that have difficulty in accessing their first loan, how will you respond to that? I'll have Mr. Xiao Yuanqi to answer the question. So you asked about the first loan of small and micro companies. We pay high attention to that. Over the years, we have done a lot in providing inclusive financing. For that being said, some small and especially micro companies and household businesses do have difficulties in accessing financing support. The reasons are multifaceted. Some of them are not qualified to get loans. And some do not access. But on the whole, our goal is to grant loans to small and micro businesses who need it as much as we can to ensure their financing needs. Thank you. Last question, please. Thank you. It's China Daily. It is reported that some banks and insurance institutions sold millions of items of client information. Is that true? What will CBIRC do to ensure the information security of clients. Thank you. I'll take your question. At the CBIRC, we have adopted a zero tolerance approach towards practices that impinge on clients' rights and interests and compromising their information security. We will deal heavily with those perpetrators. We have taken note of relevant media report. Actually, 2 days before media reports, we have already monitored the information sold by perpetrators outside China. We have asked organizations to do a sweeping investigation. The institutions have made a statement. Most of the information are fabricated and patched up by hackers. At the CBIRC, we pay high attention to cybersecurity among banks and insurance institutions. In particular, the protection of client information is the top priority. Over the years, we have laid out a lot of regulations asking banks and insurance institutions to strictly protect the private information of clients. And there are institutionalized arrangements for the collection, storage, and destruction of clients' information. We have also set up working mechanisms involving monitoring of cyber risks, risk assessment, distant regulation, and on-site inspection and risk assessment. That is part and parcel of the banks and insurance institutions' day-to-day work. We have also launched special campaigns to protect the client information and enhancing cybersecurity among banks and insurance institutions. We have also asked banks and insurance companies to troubleshoot all their problems they might have, to plug any loopholes in their system. Going forward, we'll continue to step up cybersecurity and urge banks and insurance institutions to step up work and ensure a secure and reliable cyber environment to protect the rights and interests of financial clients. Once again, thank you. That's the end of the press conference.